Hey everybody, welcome once again to my YouTube channel. In this week's video we are going to talk about the 3 things you must know about Ruby's bang methods. So if you want to become an expert on this field, stay with me. Let's go! First thing you need to know, that exclamation mark or bang doesn't mean anything to Ruby internally. It's just a convention between programmers. And having said that, the convention is that that exclamation mark must be placed at the end of the method's name. And also, I want you to think as an advice that whenever you create a bang method, you also create its non-bang counterpart. If you think about Ruby's core libraries, you will always realize that whenever there is a bang method, typically there is also its non-bang counterpart, like for example with string upcase. Second thing you need to know, they are there to get your attention. Some people say that they are dangerous, other people say that they just warn us about things, but what are they warning us about? Typically there are 2 things. The first one is about side effects, and the most common side effect is that they modify the object receiving that message. For example, think about the string upcase method. The non-bang alternative just returns that string upcased without modifying the original string. But if you use the string upcase bang alternative, it also returns an upcased string, but it modifies the original string upcasing it too. The second thing they warn us about is that that method could raise an exception, and this is very typical in Ruby on Rails. If you have looked at Rails controllers, you will see that they use active record update or save methods, and both these methods have bang and non-bang alternatives. The non-bang version typically returns a boolean, which is true if the operation was successful and false otherwise. And you will typically use that one if you want to handle the result of the operation. And you will use the bang alternative when you always expect a successful execution and therefore the method should rise otherwise. And the third and last thing you need to know is that they aren't always dangerous. In fact, they are pretty useful when you use them with collections. If you remember, we just said that the non-bang version always creates a new instance of the object. Now think about how many objects do you have in a collection. Multiply. That means that your code will allocate a lot more memory, which in the end means that the Ruby's garbage collector is going to run more often, and the Ruby's garbage collector sadly doesn't come for free. If you want to understand that better, we can see that with an example. So let's see the example. It's a really easy one. First of all, we have 2 files here. The first one, performance.rb, creates an array of strings and executes upcase over that array of strings. And the second one, performance bang, executes upcase bang over that same array of strings. Let's look at those files in more detail. So the first one, you see that we have here in the first line we are creating the data, which is the array of strings. And on the 4th line, we are executing upcase over that array of strings, right? So also on the 3rd line and on the 5th line, we are taking some measurements. The first measurement is the amount of memory this process has before our method execution, before the execution of upcase here. And the 5th line measures the amount of memory this process has reserved after the execution of the method. And it's also worth mentioning that on the 2nd line we make an explicit call to gcstart so that Ruby's garbage collector cleans all the memory that has been created here on this first line. So everything, all the measurements we get here are more accurate. So let's briefly look at the other file here, which is basically the same, but on the fourth line we just use the upcase alternative. So let's see how these perform. So if we execute the first one, remember we said that upcase without a bang creates a new instance every time we execute the method. And in this case, it means that it allocates an extra of 1004 megabytes after executing this. Whereas if we look at the other alternative, which we have said that doesn't allocate an extra memory, we allocate an extra of 0 megabytes. That means we don't allocate any extra memory at all. So remember this when you see yourself considering executing a bang or non-bang alternative over a collection. So that's everything I wanted to tell you this week. I hope you enjoyed it, and I also hope that you learned something new, or at least you refreshed some concepts you had there already forgotten somewhere in your head. If something isn't clear or you just want to tell me something, just leave me a comment there down below. Also, smash that like button and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any future update, and hope to see you in my next video. Adiós.